All right, what's up, everyone? This is the Costa Tennis Academy 25K special. Today, I'm joined by an American tennis legend. In case you don't know him, he's been ranked as high as number 8 in the world. He has the most aces of anyone ever. He won the longest tennis match ever played. He's beaten Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. But most importantly, just like me, John Isner's a Georgia Bulldog. John, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Of course. All right, it's been almost a year since you retired at last year's U.S. Open. How's life, man? How you been filling up your time?
Well, it's definitely a transition, and I knew the transition from, doing one thing for essentially 20 consecutive years, and I count college tennis as a part of that. And when you're playing when you're playing at the top level of college tennis, that's essentially like pro tennis. So really for 20 years, I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, boom, you sort of quit it cold turkey. So that transition is very, very difficult. And there were some times for sure that, I struggled with it. I kind of, wished I was back on tour. I really think when the Australian Open rolled around in January, that was a bit of a tough time for me.
Yeah.
Just wanting to be there, playing that tournament so many times. And for the first time in 17 years, not being in Australia in January was a pretty difficult pill for me to swallow. At the same time, and I knew my decision was the right one to retire. And fortunately for me, I have such an amazing life away from the tennis court. And, having 4 kids, that fills up a lot of my time, 4 young kids. And, without them, I think I might be going crazy. But look, Of course, a lot of family time. I've done some TV. I'm going to continue to do some more TV, and really still trying to figure out what exactly I guess I should say how exactly I want to spend my time going forward, because things are very different.
Yeah. And you mentioned your kids. Are they in tennis at all? Do you want them to be in tennis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're still real young, but yes, like they do play tennis. My daughter has a tennis lesson later today, not with me. I'm going to get on the tennis court with my son later today. They do enjoy to play. My oldest too, but my boy wants to play everything. So we'll of course just see what he gravitates towards. He definitely seems like he just wants to play sports all the time, which is amazing. I mean, that's how I was growing up. I'm sure that's probably how you were as well. So I'm really glad he's taken a liking to sports.
Yeah, of course. And do you ever try and find some good? I know you're in the Dallas area, maybe SMU players. You go out and smack a ball here or two?
I do. I mean, like not as much as I used to, of course, but just the other day I hit with their number 1 player, Trevor Zvadja, who, as you know, one of the best freshmen in the country. So, I live right beside the SMU tennis complex, essentially. I mean, I could walk there if I wanted to. It's a little hot right now, so I don't. But yeah, so I went and hit some balls with him. Tennis is such an amazing sport, especially when the weather's good. It's such a good workout. If anyone is good enough to, I guess, sustain a long rally, there is no better way to exercise, in my opinion, than tennis.
Yeah. No, and speaking of college tennis, so you were at Manny's retirement ceremony this year. That's where we saw each other again. Yeah. So it's a fun fact. You were the first player I ever took a picture with. We were in Saddlebrook, Florida. And when this video comes out, I'll flash the pictures across the screen. Yeah. But I think it was 9-year-old Felipe and 6'10" John Isner, and then we recreated that picture in Athens. I want to pick your brain a little bit about UGA. Can you tell the story of maybe your all-time favorite memory you've ever had at Georgia?
Yeah, of course. There were so many good memories. I mean, it was 4 years of just flat out amazing times. I mean, certainly some tough times as well, because the losses sting. My freshman year, we were in the round of 16, I believe, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was the match. It came down to me. I was the deciding match on court number 3, and I lost, and we lost 4-3. That was very, very difficult for me, but I think I learned and I grew from that. My team, my junior year, we were undefeated all the way up into the finals. I think we were 32-0, and we lost in the NCAA finals to Pepperdine, who we had beaten earlier in the year pretty easily. So, of course, we had our sights set on a national championship. Being 32-0, we were number 1 in the nation the whole time. Boom, we lose in the finals. We don't get it done. I came back for my senior year because, I didn't want to leave Athens, right? It was the best place. It's God's country. It's the best place on earth. But the NCAA tournament was in Athens, and I wanted to experience that. Any player that's ever come up through Georgia or is thinking about playing in Georgia, we all see the amazing clips and highlights of the NCAA tournament in Athens. And I wanted to experience that. And I knew we were going to have another very, very good team. So senior year, for sure, my best memory was winning the NCAA championship in our backyard in Athens, Georgia, over Illinois. We had the best weather, probably 75 degrees with a little bit of clouds, and we had more than 5,000 fans watch us clinch the national championship in our own backyard. One of the best tennis memories, without a doubt, of my whole life. College, pro, junior, it's hard to top that.
That's incredible, and we'll try and recreate that. So my senior year, I'm going to be done in 26. NCAAs are coming back to Athens. Yep. So I'll try pull a John Isner and win in front of 5,000 people there.
There you go, dude. Got to do it. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there with my kids for sure. They have to experience that.
That's awesome. All right, so Manny Diaz retired this year after 42 years. Mm-hmm. I think most people might consider him the greatest college tennis coach of all time. But he's not only a great coach, unbelievable guy. Now, with that unbelievableness, he's an unbelievable guy to tell stories around, to get jokes from. I want to know, what's your craziest Manny Diaz story?
Oh, wow. Well, there's a lot. We early, I think it was like maybe my sophomore year. I remember we lost to, had to have been my sophomore year. We lost to Auburn, and it's not a team that Georgia loses to much. I mean, no offense to Auburn, but we lost to them, and holy cow, he let us have it in the locker room afterwards. Wow. I don't think it was our best match. Maybe we didn't compete as well as we could have, and we definitely deserved it on top of that. But that's what I think makes Manny so great. He's not all fire all the time, and he's a player's coach, in my opinion. But when he needs to kind of light a fire in our ass, like, he's going to do that. And I particularly always responded well to that. Also, one time in practice, my sophomore year, we were practicing in the indoor courts, and I wasn't having a good day. I think I was being, if I remember correctly, I was being pretty selfish on the practice court. I definitely was not being a good teammate. I was pretty pouty on the court, and he came up to me. Obviously, Manny's a guy that, of course, I look up to, not literally, obviously, but he came up to me, looking at me, and he let me have it, and he kicked me off the practice court.
Wow.
And I was like, holy cow. And it snapped me right back into it. I was done with practice that day. Never again did I act up like that, because I had so much respect for Coach Diaz. And of course, I have so much respect for my teammates, and I just wasn't being a good one. Mm-hmm. And I apologized to everyone after the fact. And I made a promise to myself that I was never going to do that again. But for Manny, he always pushed me very, very hard. Which I responded well to. So he knew exactly what to do. He doesn't treat everyone the same, because everyone's different. That's what makes Manny so great. But, going to Georgia for me was probably the best decision I ever made in my life, because there's some other schools I considered, of course, but something told me to choose Georgia to go play college tennis at and study at. And that's what I did. And I think it was the right choice.
Yeah. No, I think, having spent his last 2 years under Manny, I think one of his superpowers is he knows exactly what to pinpoint. Mm-hmm. And maybe you'll have all these other coaches or what should be said, just on a script, but Manny knows exactly what to address in a locker room scenario.
And I think what makes Manny so great, sorry, Felipe, is that, obviously he's got more experience than anyone. Is a head coach for 40-some years, or almost 40-some years. And, maybe it was I don't know when he started, sometime in the 80s, but he's always evolved as a coach. And I think he was even learning, new things the last couple of years as a head coach. And here's a guy who's been doing it forever and ever. So definitely not stubborn in his ways, and knew how to relate to his players, because each team and each individual, of course, is so different.
Yeah, no, for sure. One of my favorite Manny Diaz sayings is, "I've forgotten more tennis than you'll ever know."
That's right. That's exactly right. That dude's got a lot of experience, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. Now, this is a risky one. Now that you're far removed from college tennis and Manny is gone, what's a story that would have gotten you in trouble back in the day?
A story that would have gotten me in trouble? Golly, it's hard to think about that, because I have been so far removed from college tennis. I don't know if I'm going to pinpoint an exact story, but look, when I was a senior, the now current head coach, Jamie, was a freshman. And now Jamie, of course, is amazing and has matured, as we know, so much. But look, we had some fun times with Jamie as a freshman. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I remember kind of sort of taking Jamie under my wing a little bit as a senior. Yeah. He was this highly touted freshman. But, of course, there's a little bit of hazing going on with the senior. Nothing bad, right? I know this would everyone get us in trouble. But, good-natured hazing that I think was good for the freshmen. And Jamie and, a guy like Nate Schnug, who came in as a freshman with him as well. So, I might have to think about a particular story because, look, it's been so far removed, and I might have to get back to you on that.
There we go. Now, on the subject of Jamie, he's taken over as Georgia's third ever head coach. Yeah. You were teammates with him. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to be with Jamie and how he developed as a player, and now what your advice to him is to put Georgia and to maintain it as the mecca of college tennis?
Yeah, well, I always thought Jamie was mature beyond his years, even as a freshman. Look, of course, he liked to have fun. He would hang out with his teammates. He would, go downtown and, be a college student and be a college, athlete at the same time. But it's always very, very mature. And he kind of took on a leadership role as a freshman, which I thought was very remarkable. And of course, I left after that, and he continued and finished his career at Georgia. And did really amazing things. He won back-to-back national championships. So he's got unbelievable success, of course, as a player. And then when he became the assistant coach, thought that was an amazing hire for Manny. And now, look, he's come full circle. He's the third, which is crazy to think about. I mean, Georgia tennis has been around forever. There's only been 3 head coaches in history. So he's stepping into some extremely large shoes, and he knows that. And so he's not taking this role lightly. Georgia is one of the best programs in the country. He knows that. They need to be a perennial top 10, top 5 team. And I think he's going to, keep Georgia up at the very top and compete for national championships. I know he's got a lot of goals. He texted me, just yesterday that, his associate head coach Bryce is going to be at Wimbledon. I'm going to be over there doing some TV. He's going to try to help him out with tickets because he's got to be recruiting and whatnot. So he's on the spot with everything right now. He knows what needs to be done. He's been a part of the Georgia culture for a very, very long time, and he's got a game plan. He's going to go out and execute it. So a great hire, and so happy for Jamie and so happy for the university.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is a quote that my dad tells me, and I live and breathe it at Georgia, is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I think in my eyes, being in the program, that's something that sets us apart. At University of Georgia. What do you think over the years has made Georgia the mecca and arguably the greatest college tennis program of all time?
Yeah, look, I think you hit the nail on the head. The culture is amazing. When I went back to Athens to watch Manny's last home match, I mean, everyone knows that Georgia, you could say, had probably a little bit of tough luck with a lot of these players not, getting back, getting on campus with Ethan, turning pro after winning the NCAA championships as a freshman, and Alex Mickelson turning pro. I mean, probably you made the right choice. And then there's the proving kid. So, Georgia had 3 players that, looks like their team's going to be amazing. And all of a sudden they're not on the, they're not competing. So of course, Georgia is going to struggle a little bit when you're missing probably your top 3 players in an environment where college tennis is so tough right now. But when I was there and Georgia was playing South Carolina, and you guys were probably the underdog, just the way that y'all competed point after point after point, that's the culture that Manny created. He's always said, you may not be the most talented, but you're not going to outcompete Georgia. And that's exactly what happened. And it made me proud to come back and watch the Dogs compete like that. Georgia's going to have great teams going forward. We all know that, but the facility is amazing. I mean, what Dan McGill built, it is the mecca of college tennis. And, I'll go ahead and say it. And it's a sentiment that a lot of people echo, is that, the NCAA tournament needs to be in Athens a lot more than it is now. It needs to, even players that don't play on Georgia will say that Athens, Georgia is the best place to host that event. And having been a part of it and won it all in Athens in 2007, there's absolutely nothing like it. The way the town, comes out and supports the that tournament, even when Georgia's not in it. It's amazing for everyone competing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's incredible. All right, we got to talk about Wimbledon 2010. You won the longest tennis match of all time. Match lasted 3 days. That's 14 years ago from this year. Well, walk me through some of your emotions and the stuff that you must obviously remember from that match.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that it was 14 years ago, because it really doesn't seem like that long ago. But I was sort of at that point I was 3 years on tour, so I was sort of a younger guy on tour, but I had established myself. I mean, I was seated at the event, and I knew that I played a qualifier. I'm like, okay, it's, oftentimes it's not easy when you play qualifier, because they're, especially at a Grand Slam, because they're coming in and they've won 3 matches on that surface just to get, into the main draw. So had a feeling it wasn't such a great thing. And then boom, I played Nicholas Mahut, which everyone knew was really, really good on grass. Of course, I mean, so I knew I was going to be in for a dogfight. I didn't know how much of a dogfight, but it just like the first day was totally normal. We started late, and we must have started probably at like 7:30 p.m. You can play till almost about 10 over there in London during Wimbledon, and I won the 4th set to have us go 2 sets all, and they decided to stop the match, and like no one ever thought anything of it. There was a lot of matches that didn't finish, and so the first day was totally normal. It was the second day that got really, really, wacky out there, and I wasn't the first match on. I think I might have gone on the court at like 2:00, and we probably had 7.5 hours or something. I don't really know, to finish 1 set, and we weren't able to do it. There was a lot of technical things that, of course, we could have done better out there, but it became a war of attrition for sure. And somewhere along the line of 15, 16, all, that's when you started hearing, like, being on court 18, you could sort of hear the crowd being on the court, like kind of talking, and like everyone trying to get a peek of this court. It's a pretty big court. It's not the biggest, but it's not the smallest court at Wimbledon. The next thing you know, it gets into the 20s, and there's people hanging over the top, and it just became a spectacle, and everyone wanted to watch it. And then we just got into these wacky numbers. And I think at 48 all, the scoreboard broke.
Wow.
People loved that. Like, it literally broke. Like, the guy, like Muhammad, the referee, the umpire, had to, manually shout out the scores, the game score, not just the match score, not just the game score. It became insane. And one thing I do remember is the World Cup was going on at the exact same time. And our match after the second day, when we didn't finish, was stealing headlines from the World Cup.
No way.
And England was in the World Cup competing, and we were like the top story. It just became insane. And I was totally shell shocked. I was just like, after the second day, I just didn't know what to do. I go to the locker room. I just scarfed down some food. I guess I tried to take an ice bath and tried to sleep as much as I possibly could. And the third day, I woke up after having played for 8 straight hours. It actually felt okay, because I had a lot of adrenaline still in my body. So my body performed well and was able to win the match. But then after that, I took a kind of a big sigh of relief, because I was just, of course, exhilarated that the match was over finally at 70-68 after a basketball score broke out in the 5th set.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt horrible, like instantly horrible, because once my body let go of all that adrenaline, I had nothing left. And of course, I didn't win my next match. One thing I like to say is I had 113 aces, which of course is a record. My opponent had like 105 or something. Yeah. And I had 0 in my next match. It was the only match in my career, almost like I played over 800 matches, only match in my career where I didn't have 1 ace. So that just goes to show how awful my body felt. I had nothing left, but that was a match that was really hard to escape, especially the rest of that year. Everyone wanted to know about it, and it sort of wore on me, like mentally and physically. Certainly took a lot out of me. It took a lot out of my opponent as well.
Mm-hmm. No, that's it. And congrats on that win, by the way.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's head over to our last little topic here. We got a new wave of players coming in with Sinner and Alcaraz now dominating the game.
Mm-hmm.
When you were playing, you had to face tennis's big three in Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. As someone who's beaten all three of them, could you go into a depth about what it feels like to play against these guys and how their ball comes at you and what you have to do to beat the big three in tennis?
Well, it was always a challenge when you played one of those guys, and it was a challenge that you always, wanted to meet head on, of course. But when you did play Rafa, Novak, or Roger, you knew it was going to be a big spectacle. You knew it was going to, be on center court, and it was just going to be an unbelievable opportunity for yourself. But at the same time, so difficult. It's not so much that their balls are heavier. You're competing against the person, but you're also competing against the greatness of that person as well. You have to have that belief that you can beat them. And a lot of players don't have that. And there's certainly some times where, I played Rafa on clay, like in Madrid once. And I was like, really? Like, am I really going to beat this guy? But then other times I played him and I really did think I could beat him. And I lost him in some close matches, but you have to have that belief that you can beat those guys. And it's very, very difficult. But at the same time, it's so much fun. I mean, those are the matches you want to be a part of, because you're going to be on the stadium court. It's going to be 15,000 people watching you. It was a very difficult task. And what made those guys so incredibly good is they're getting everyone's absolute best effort against them. It's everyone else's Super Bowl when they go up against Roger, Novak, and Rafa, and they have to compete against that, because oftentimes players can play very well when there's no pressure. As you know, when you're the underdog, there's no pressure. No one expects you to win. You can go out there and just and just play free and play really well. And that's what those guys had to compete against every single time. But they were so difficult to beat. We'll probably never going to see anything like that again with those three guys dominating. The new wave of players right now with, as you mentioned, Alcaraz and Sinner, doesn't look like those guys are going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, they're going to be mainstays in the top 3-4 in the world for the next 8-9 years, you would have to imagine. So those two in particular, there could be some players that could emerge and compete with them, but those two in particular are the ones that every big tournament going forward that you're going to have to try to beat one or both of those guys to lift the title. And that's a very, very tall task.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, they've been playing incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So from a TV standpoint, we see Federer as this all-out, aggressive guy that takes everything early. Djokovic, this backboard of a human, and Nadal, the craziest amount of spin of all time. Is that what it feels like to play against them, or when you're on court and it's eye level and their ball's coming at you? Does it feel different than what it looks like?
No, it doesn't necessarily feel that different. I mean, look, what people need to realize is that those guys feel nerves as well. I mean, no one is impervious to getting nervous on the court. What makes them so great is that their default is much better than everyone else's, right? So Novak's feeling nervy on the court, and I think he's mentioned this before. He's going to bring his margins in, and he's just going to lock down. He's going to use his legs, and he's not going to miss. And he's going to make you beat him. And the same thing for Rafa. And Roger has so much skill. He's going to come in the net and kind of force the issue on you if he's feeling a little bit nervous as well. So, look, those three guys certainly, you can say, played pretty differently. I mean, Novak is like the perfect backboard, perfect counterpuncher, can play aggressive if he wants to. There's not a single shot he can't hit. Rafa is this, he's the Spanish bull. That's his nickname for a reason. No one is ever going to compete like Rafa does on the court. And Roger does it with such elegance and poise. And it's just the most beautiful thing watching Roger play tennis. So those three guys kind of went about it differently. They went about it different on the practice court as well. Oftentimes people talk about Roger, on his off days at a Grand Slam, he does just kind of, go through the motions on the practice court, where Rafa is full speed on the practice court. But for Roger, I mean, he knows that at that point, I like this saying, sort of the hay is in the barn. I mean, he's done all the hard work away from the match court, away from the tournament. So he knows that he's prepared to play well. But those guys went about it differently, I think, off the court and on the court. But the results speak for themselves, and each of them have over 20 Grand Slams, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. All right, last question. You've played all three. Who's the best of the three?
Oof. It's a good question. I mean, I think at their peak, absolutely locked in, probably, Novak. I played him one time in Beijing, and he has actually, no one ever talks about this. He has an insane record in Beijing. I think he's 25-0 in that tournament. He's never lost. And I played him one time, and it was a quarterfinals of Beijing, and I knew he was playing really well. He's never lost to this tournament, and I'm excited about the match, of course. And I go to bed the night before, and I just want to play in the night match the next day. I want to see what the weather looks like, and boom, the weather was dropping 25 degrees on us. So I was going to be playing him in like 48, 49, 50-degree weather at night in Beijing. I knew I was absolutely toast, because that means I'm not going to get many free points on my serve. Yeah. And he was dialed in, and he beat me 2-2. So, and he's a guy that, would stand in on the baseline on my first serve because he anticipates so well. So I think, like, fully locked in, I'm going to give it to Novak, because there's just not much you can do.
Wow.
He's just got no weaknesses out there. And he's still going. That's why he just lost his number one ranking. But to be number one at 37 in the world is remarkable. Roger did that as well. I think he got the number one at like 36 or 37. So those guys are spectacular and amazing for the game, as you know. I think they brought all of tennis up with them, and players benefited because those guys are so great.
That's awesome. All right. Well, John, thanks so much for joining us. I want to see you back in Athens soon.
Yes, sir. Felipe, thanks so much, buddy.
Of course.